Galveston is an island off the coast of Texas. You know, we're set aside from the rest of the world. Sunshine, you know, palm trees, bikinis. I mean, you can take that as however you want to, But I'm born on the island, and they say that islanders have salt water in our veins. So we're a breed amongst ourselves. What could be better than living on an island? And the only word, if you notice, I didn't use a tropical island, because we're an island off the coast of Texas. September 13th, 2008. At that point, we all were even. We all were equal. The further you get away from it, the more of the separation of power you see.
The, the day of the storm, when the storm passed, I think it was like 9 o'clock in the morning, they were talking about evacuating us. Now, the evacuation site was Ball High School, the public high school here, and we took 59th Street, and there's a cemetery, Lakeview Cemetery. So we're walking up the street, 59th Street, passing Lakeview Cemetery, seeing 3 different coffins had just floated up out of the ground. Coffins, houses that just had fallen in, could have been people in those houses that were dead, So we made it to Ball High School. We get a block to the school, and I can see in the distance thousands of people. Kids crying, people without shoes, people in night clothes. People was distraught. And I told my boyfriend, my partner, I said, no, I can't do it. What they were doing, they were evacuating buses load. There are people that were there 2 days before they were even evacuated because it was so many people until they were evacuating them and they were evacuating them, when the bus loads. They get so many buses and they take off and stuff. They end up evacuating some of these people to Austin. Some of them went to San Antonio. I remember hearing people saying that they stayed at the military base. And since Ike, nobody's here. Nobody's here. Nobody's here.
There's this saying, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. My mother was born in New Orleans. My father was born in St. Martinsville. They moved to Galveston in 1937 because Galveston was a place where African Americans could make a better living because of the wharf. The wharf paid more than the average job that African Americans could get in 1937, and my father began to work as a longshoreman. So growing up here was pretty good.
Place has been here since the 60s, the late 60s. Here in Galveston, no Selena's Blue Room. It's called Selena's Blue Room. I remember as a kid walking by here and seeing the blue light. It was a blue light and said Selena's Blue Room, and that always caught my attention because it was blue lights, and I would walk by, and probably was like 9 or 10 years old, wasn't even old enough to go in there, but I always wondered how it looked on the inside, All kinds of people would visit the bar, different color backgrounds, and because Miss Selena, she was very accepting, her and her daughter, they were very accepting, open arms. They made everybody feel welcome when they came in, as long as you didn't start no problems, My very first drag show was here. That was over 20 some years ago. And one of the queens, one of the drag queens, her name was Miss. She goes by Stick Pin, but she had did a song called Cleanup Woman, and she said, "Hey girl, I need somebody to back me up." So I came out in a long robe with the broom and the little duster and stuff. And I've always wanted to be on stage. That was my very first drag show, and it was here. It was here, and so after that, I got the bug. I always wanted to perform since then. So yeah, and this place has a lot of history. Lots of history. Yeah, my partner and I, we stayed during Ike. We had an option of leaving, but we didn't want to go to nobody else's house. We're very private people. Our lifestyle doesn't allow us to be living with somebody else. And we thought about it, and I questioned him, and he was like, "Okay, babe, we got food and everything. We got supplies. We'll go ahead and stay." Didn't know that it was going to be bad, than what it actually was. And we stayed, and Ike was scheduled to make landfall about 1 o'clock a.m. When we started experiencing the wind and even the storm surge early. That's when the door flew open. That's the main door to the rooms up there. When that door flew open, and it was a big, huge door, and it was about that thick. The door was, and the wind blew it open. So when the wind blew it open, I lost my windows, aquariums and nightstands and stuff. All that stuff, you could just see it going down the hallway, just flying down the hallway. So I had to put all my weight against it. And I was so tired of standing I stood like this for like 15, 20 minutes, scared. So when I came out, the sign, her original sign, Selena's Blue Room, had broken, and it flown in our yard. That's the first thing I noticed when I came outside the next morning before we left out. The first thing I noticed, I looked and I seen that sign, and that sign was laying right there in the middle, right in front of that truck. And that sign had been up there over 40 years. And to see that sign laying on the ground, and me as a little kid, 8, 9, 10 years old, walking through here and seeing the sign and the beautiful blue colored bulbs, and to see it on the ground, I said, it's over. It's all over with,
Pre-Ike, you actually wouldn't have known that Galveston had a racial problem. Post-Ike, segments of Galveston Island were individuals who had moved here the last 10, 15, 20 years. Like most cities across the United States, big or small, gang violence had taken its toll on Galveston Island.
But not everybody was into the violence and the drugs. It was just those bad characters, that were around. And anywhere you go, New Orleans, they got same neighborhoods too. Houston, they have the same neighborhoods too, But Galveston is quiet now. It's real quiet. It's totally different. And that's why I say I think I kept those out who didn't want these places here. Well, when I was growing up, this was home. It was public housing, everybody knew everybody, and it was a close bond then, you know what I'm saying? As time went on, and then when Ike hit, it just took it all away, It took it all away, and I'm thinking that's what they wanted.
African Americans and minorities are always going to feel the brunt of no matter what it is. No matter how it comes, There are always going to be the individuals who feel the brunt of it. I do know that society makes it that way. Society, we're set up for failure as minorities. You've heard of the glass ceiling? Well, every time you get to the place where you can touch the glass ceiling, they raise it up.
People were homeless, so they were like saying, okay, well, let's use this apartment complex for low housing income. Oh no, we don't want those low housing income people living here because we have a doctor that lives across the street that works for UTMB, you know. Or we don't want them living here because we have a judge that lives across the street that works for the county. They were used to them being here. Now, I also heard that some of these places could run like $700 or $800 a month, and if you didn't make a certain amount, then you wouldn't qualify to live here. I think deep down inside, I think they're deterring people from returning.
After Ike, all of public housing was torn down.
If the public housing was still here, you'll have kids playing, you know, riding their bicycles and playing. They're playing in the courtyard and stuff. You'll hear people playing their music in their apartments.
Now that they've begun to rebuild the public housing in Galveston, that element has not had a chance to be reborn. The racial part of Galveston has been put back in the closet. We're set aside from the rest of the world.
Good evening. My dream for the future of our world and its people.
Right after the hurricane, everybody got together. Everybody got together and they bonded and they were asking, do you need help? Do you need somewhere to stay? And there was a bond with everybody, you know. Everybody came together, all races, creed, backgrounds came together, you know. People with money, people without money. We're all equal
The
there.
community is the foundation to the bridge of universal harmony. Within the community, there are different cultures that create diversity. Culture is characterized by everything from language, religion, foods, social habits, music, and arts. It is the scope of how we see the world.
But as things begin to change to bring you back to a whole, we didn't move. They continued to become whole. We still don't have public housing back. There are still African Americans who haven't had their homes repaired. They're progressing and we're still at a standstill. We're still waiting on the federal government.
The bonds built at the community level will flow to the national level of cultural awareness. We must realize that there is one race of people on the earth, and that is the human race. This is my dream to come true. Thank you.
It's inevitable. 100 years from now, Galveston Island may not be here. We're 37 miles all the way around, no place for growth. Set aside from the rest of the world.